what they're accusing foreign vloggers in China of doing is really ill-informed because they're basically saying that China can't have good news.
Hey guys, Xingran here. Today I'll be joined by Andy Boreham, a New Zealander who lived in China for 10 years, and he is now a columnist and video maker at Shanghai Daily. Hi Andy. Recently, the New York Times and Australian Strategic Policy Institute have released their coordinated reports accusing foreign influencers of being a part of China's alleged propaganda machine. You have written a quite passionate article in rebuttal to their accusation. Could you tell us why do you find the allegations ill-informed?
Well, I just feel like, firstly, their allegations and their reports are very unfair. Did work in coordination. They both released their reports on the same day. So I think it's also quite unfair. But I think basically what they're accusing foreign vloggers in China of doing is really ill-informed because they're basically saying that China can't have good news, that anything good that comes out of China or any good news that's shared by foreigners here who want to let the world see the real China, at least according to them, they're saying it's fake, either paid for by the government or influenced in some way, which I think is extremely unfair. And we wouldn't expect the same level of criticism on foreign vloggers, for example, in the United States. I think in my column I talked about how 800,000 people have died in America so far from the bad COVID response. But we don't expect vloggers in the United States to talk about the coronavirus failure there in every video. And that's a proven fact, not like the allegations in Xinjiang, which are disputed. There's no evidence. So I think they're creating two sets of rules, one for Chinese and one for other people. So I think it's really unfair.
Why do you think certain Western institutions targets on foreign nationals in China like you?
Well, actually, I was thinking about it before. I think one of the main reasons people like New York Times and APSI target foreigners in China is because they're quite lazy. They can't read Chinese. They can't target any Chinese people online who are sharing the real story from China. So all they can do is target English speakers mainly. There's also some German influencers, or one German influencer who was targeted by German media. They can't really dig deep into Chinese people's content online. So they have to take the easy target. And for them, the easy target is English speakers, German speakers, foreigners in China. So I think it really comes down to being lazy. They have a need to have negative Chinese content. But of course, if you can't understand Chinese, if you can't read Chinese, it's very hard to attack the source material. So instead, it's us foreigners.
You choose to join Shanghai Daily after graduating from Fudan University. What attracted you to join the media industry in China? And how do you feel about your work?
Actually, I've always been really interested in media. I started a little street newspaper when I was a little kid, writing reports on my neighbors. I made video news reports. I've always been really interested in media. So I think joining media in China was a natural progression. Actually, when I was studying my master's in Fudan, I was at a few media, Pengpai and Sixth Tone, and then Shanghai Daily. So that's what I did as an intern during my study. So I think it was just a natural progression. I'm really interested in Chinese media, actually, mainly because it's so different to New Zealand media. So in New Zealand media, in the liberal West anyway, the Anglo-West, media is called the fourth estate. It's meant to be completely separate from government, and it's used to criticize and attack governance or bad governance. But in China, actually, the media is more part of the government. It's for disseminating useful information and things like that. So I think these are at two extreme ends of the media. So I was really interested in learning more. And so during my internships, I figured I really want to try and work in Chinese media. So I was really excited when Shanghai Daily offered me work when I graduated. Actually, at the moment, I'm working on a lot of my own content. Apart from my column, which I write every week, I also have a series called Reports on China, 外媒看中国, which looks obviously at Western reports on China. I do all that independently. Everything is written by myself. The ideas I come up with myself. I'm given a lot of freedom. Also with my column, which is printed in Shanghai Daily every week, I've never been told, I've been there 5 years now, I've never been told you can't do this, you can't do that. So I really think a lot of these people like New York Times, they have this dystopian idea in their heads of what Chinese media is all about. They think it's altogether evil, and so they write these reports that fit their own narrative. But I think really, if they took some time to dive deeper, if they asked some actual Chinese people working in media or even foreigners working for Chinese media, I think they would learn a lot, and probably it would be a lot less exciting than they think it is.
I know you have been closely following China's measure to tackle COVID-19, and you have made several videos on this topic. What's your observation on China's performance in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think after the coronavirus blew up, China has dealt with it really amazingly, obviously. I worked in a Shanghai quarantine hotel, a close contacts hotel for a day last year or the year before last. And it was amazing, the measures they have in place, the level of safety and security they have around imported cases. You know, China has hundreds, or maybe not hundreds, but a lot of imported cases every day, Chinese returning home. And they're dealt with very safely, very effectively. You won't hear of cases in China where guests in these quarantine hotels have cross-infected each other, which is something that happens frequently in quarantine hotels in the West. And again, it comes down to different governance, different culture. For example, in New Zealand, people think that being locked in a hotel room for 2 weeks without leaving that room is kind of unfathomable. It's an infringement on their rights. So even when they're in the coronavirus hotel for 2 weeks, they're allowed to leave their room after the first 4 days to go walking around, get some exercise. And in that time, they will cross paths with other people who are also in quarantine, which I can't understand that, especially having been inside the Shanghai quarantine hotel where they're not even allowed to leave their room. Even when the food's delivered, they'll knock on the door to signal that the food's outside. Then the guests have to wait a couple of minutes, I think, before they're allowed to open the door and take their food. So China really has an amazing system. I really don't think any other countries could emulate China's approach. I really don't think other countries have the organization or the manpower. I wish they did, but I don't think they do. A lot of countries said they were going to donate vaccines or make vaccines available to the developing world because we really need the whole world to be vaccinated together to get over this. But I think a lot in the West, in the USA, a lot of what they say is just words. So America will say, we're going to give X amount of vaccines. It's very slow to come to reality. I know India said before Delta, they were going to donate X amount of vaccines. That didn't happen. They needed that for their own population. But in China, what China says they tend to do. So China has shared many, many, many vaccines with developing countries and made sure that those developing countries are covered. And again, that was the target of a lot of Western media attacks. People saw such a good thing as a negative. They were saying China was doing this for vaccine diplomacy to have some sort of say in those countries. Again, I think in a lot of situations like that, the Western media is best ignored. If we want the world to be healthy, we need to work together and we need to come through with what we say we're going to do.